The job market is the worst it's ever been in over a decade, specifically for the younger generation. Gen Z's unemployment rate is nearly double that of the national average, and nearly 60% of all recent college grads are still looking for their first job. And that's compared to just 25% of recent college graduates in previous generations. But is this all Gen Z's fault, or is there something else going on behind the scenes? Many baby boomers believe that Gen Z is in all this mess because they're too lazy, entitled, and have no work ethic. Which is kind of funny because we've heard this many times before. Each generation loves to complain about the next new generation. Baby boomers were called the me generation back in the 70s because they supposedly only cared about themselves. Gen X were branded the slackers in the 90s, and millennials were also called lazy and entitled in the 2010s. At this point, criticizing the following generation is basically a rite of passage. I'm not saying that every Gen Z person is the perfect worker, but the narrative that they're all just lazy and entitled is kind of a cop-out. It scapegoats an entire generation rather than facing the real reasons behind why the job market is so bad for the youngins. And it really just boils down to three main things. The first reason being the broken career pipeline. So this guy worked as a UI UX designer for a fintech company who basically laid off the entire design team, and then many months later just found out that his company hired a bunch of AI interns to do their job. And this isn't just happening in the tech space. There's a freelance journalist for a radio station, a copywriter for a gardening magazine, and even a voice actor from San Francisco. And all these people had years and years of experience. The designer from the fintech company had over 10 years, and AI still replaced him. But now let's snap back to here, okay? I want you to think about the Gen Z. These are recent college graduates entering the workforce for the very first time. They don't have any work experience or any real work experience. And so naturally, they're looking for entry-level work like basic data entry, basic research, grunt work that isn't hard to do, but is necessary to progress in any career. Think of career progression like a ladder, right? Everyone starts off in the bottom rung, doing basic tasks where they learn the ropes and level up, and then they gradually work their way up. But now AI is removing the bottom rungs entirely because this grunt work is the exact type of work that AI can do really well. Since late 2022, job opportunities for these exact kinds of entry-level roles fell roughly 13 to 16%. And since then, AI has only gotten smarter and more advanced. Soon, they'll be able to do more complex tasks and potentially even break into the middle rungs of the career ladder as well. But the thing most people don't realize is that this isn't just about losing entry-level jobs. It's about the traditional career pipeline no longer working for an entire generation. And even if a company is still looking for a human to do entry-level jobs, it's still going to be very tough because the second reason that we're in this mess is the bar keeps getting higher. A majority of employers surveyed already admitted that they raised the experience requirements over the past 3 years. Entry-level jobs paying $10 an hour with no benefits at a no-name company now requires you to have a master's degree, 8 years of Swift programming experience, even though Swift only came out 5 years ago, and also finding the cure for cancer. There are many reasons that this is happening, from online job portals like LinkedIn and Indeed, making it way too easy for anyone to spam apply to 500 jobs in 2.5 minutes, to companies not wanting to invest time teaching brand new hires from scratch. But one of the less talked about reasons for why companies are raising the bars is that it gives hiring managers a safe way to break the law. So a behind the scenes look, right? During the job hiring process, there are a ton of reasons why someone might want to hire one person over the other. But not all of those reasons are legal. And even if it was legal, doing so might be bad for the company. So what will hiring managers do? They will put a ton of ridiculous requirements that they can be pretty much 98% sure that no single individual candidate will be able to check all the boxes, which allows them to say no to anyone they want while still being within the legal bounds. Because the hiring manager can always say, well, the other candidate, they were missing X, Y, Z requirements. The point is, the career ladder doesn't just have missing bottom rungs anymore. It has rungs now that are 50 feet apart, meaning most Gen Z won't even be able to reach it. The third reason this is happening is a little bit more low-key. So a 2024 survey found that 40% of employers are actively posting job opportunities without any intention to hire or even respond to applicants. People in the know call this ghost job postings. It's basically a strategy that companies use to seem like they're growing or to make the overworked worker feel better by implying help is almost on the way. In fact, this person noticed that their own department had openings for 8 straight months, despite not actually needing any more staff in the office. So when he asked HR about it, they basically said that we keep the job postings up even though we're not hiring because turnover is really high for this role. In other words, companies try to build a pipeline of potential candidates for the future. Although they don't have any interest in hiring someone right now, they want to have your information on file so they can hit you up when they need to fill a vacant spot. But there is another reason that companies do ghost job postings, and frankly, I think it's a lot worse than everything else we said so far. For most job applications, right, it's going to ask you to list out your qualifications, your salary expectations, your previous employers, and your previous salaries, meaning you are basically giving these companies free insider information so they can learn about their industry, they can see what their competitors are paying, and gauge how many people are looking for a specific role. Based on this, they can make major decisions like what's the lowest salary they can offer to hire someone, and how difficult would it be to get a replacement if they fire a current employee. The problem with this ghost listing strategy is that it costs the job seekers time and energy, and then only to discover that there was never a real chance in the first place. And I'd argue even worse, it gives these job seekers a false sense of hope. Because imagine you find your perfect company, your perfect role, only for all your applications to go into a black hole. And if you think this is just an issue in the United States, think again. Youth unemployment in the EU is around 14%, which is more than double the overall EU unemployment rate. In China, the urban youth unemployment rate in 2023 hit a record 21.3%. And there's a popular movement in China called lying flat, which is basically young people giving up on the rat race because the opportunities just aren't there. Even in South Korea, right, youth unemployment rate is higher than it was for previous generations. And they even have a term called the spec war, which means you need multiple certifications and specifications and perfect grades to land any job. And I tell you this with the hopes that maybe you have a bit of misery loves company comfort in knowing that this is a global issue and it's not just you. But here's the thing, all right? Whether you are Gen Z or not, if you are struggling to find a job in today's job market, don't worry. There is a way through this, and I'm going to be sharing my 3-step framework that I created based on my obsession and love for video games that actually helped 2 of my friends recently land their dream jobs. So giving you some context, in any video games, whether that's Mario, League of Legends, or Black Myth Wukong, you mainly play 3 positions: defensive, neutral, and offensive. And during your entire job hunt, you're gonna have to play all 3, or else you're gonna have a bad time. First, play defense. This is all about protecting your health bar. In real life, this means your financial stability and your basic well-being. You can't control the job markets, but you can control how you cushion yourself for all the punches that are coming. Step 1, you need to get your money situation in order. And I know that's not fun, but it's actually more important than ever because job uncertainty or periods of unemployment, they might be the new norm for a little bit. The easiest way to defend your finances is with a very simple budget. You can write this on the back of a napkin if you want, as long as you follow the 60-20-20 rule, which basically means 60% of your monthly expenses should be dedicated to core expenses. This is your utilities, your bills, your housing, your rent. 20% should be dedicated to your choice expenses. So these are things that you do for fun. And then the remaining 20% should be dedicated to your growth expenses. This is your emergency fund, your investments, and all that shabam. By the way, if you want to get the money map that I just showed you for free, just head to the link in the description down below. It's already being used by tens of thousands of people. Once you have your simple budget set up, you want to try to cut costs where possible. For example, if you can live at home for a little bit longer to save on rent, that would be fantastic. Unfortunately, about 34% of Gen Zers have no emergency savings at all. But if you want to play good defense, you want to save at least 3 months of expenses in your emergency fund, which is going to allow you to treat the job hunting process more like a marathon and less of a sprint. Next, play the neutral stance. All right, so in video games, neutral stance is just like you're observing, you're picking up power-ups, you're preparing your next move. In real life, this translates to taking care of your mental health, staying grounded, and improving yourself in low pressure ways during the job process. About 74% of Gen Z and young millennials said that the job search has negatively impacted their mental health. I remember when I was deep in the job hunt, right? Every single time I got rejected, it made me feel super insecure and super small. Like maybe I am not as good as I think I am. And what helped me through those really tough times was really doing three things. All right, so first is to set boundaries to prevent yourself from burning out. For example, when I was looking for a job, I would time block on my calendar 2 hours a day reserved just for the job search. And then for the rest of the time, I focused on hobbies and fun, but more importantly on the offensive stance, which is the next one that I'm gonna get into in a bit. The second thing that helps me is just finding community, all right? Even if it is a friend in the same situation or an online group where people share job hunting stories, you can look into Reddit forums like r/job or r/anti-work, but just be careful in the second one because sometimes it's a bit too toxic. I think sometimes in small doses, this is helpful because it allows you to see that you are not alone in this. And be extra careful, right? Balancing the negative venting and the negative talk with positive support. And number three, just some little habits that helped me more than I thought it would. Science says that going for a walk, exposing yourself to sunlight or exercising, even doing push-ups in your room or yoga, these are all really great ways to boost your mood. Oh, and also sleeping. Next, play offense, all right? That means making more proactive moves to just take advantage of any opportunities. The first step is to use your time to find small things that might strengthen your resume, even if it's just a little bit. For example, if you're interested in digital marketing, Google offers a bunch of free online courses with certification that you can tack onto your resume to make it stand out. Next, just consider taking on side quests, all right? Maybe taking on a full-time career track job is really, really hard to come by right now. So think about it, right? Is there an alternative path that you can temporarily take? Maybe you aspire to be in film production, but nothing is hitting for a full-time role. Could you pick up a freelance video editing project or even work at a small YouTube channel to start building experience? It might not be your dream right now, but it could be a stepping stone that you can add onto your resume to make you stand out more. And who knows, you might love it. Number three, and this is probably the most important one, especially in today's job market. Unfortunately, the reality is that many jobs nowadays are won through personal connections and not really public applications. Studies show that when an existing employee refers a candidate, they are 7 times more likely to be hired than those who just apply online and job boards. I always tell people how important networking is in the job search. And in these videos, I'll always receive comments like, it doesn't work like that, or it doesn't work, or you live in a fantasy world. But listen, here's some tough love, all right? Networking is tough. It can be very, very tough, but there's no way around it. Sorry. I always thought networking was a little bit icky and hard as well. That is until I kind of changed the way that I view it. The next time you network, whether that's in person or online, I want you to put yourself in the mindset that you are trying to make friends and ask for advice rather than being in the mindset of you begging for a job. You'd be surprised by just changing your intention behind it, how many more people will be receptive to you. And then obviously at the end of the conversation, ask if they have any advice that they can give you to have a better chance getting the job. AKA you're asking for a referral in a subtle way. Not every conversation or person you meet is going to give you a referral. You might have to talk to 20 people to get 1 referral in return. But that 1 referral could make all the difference. Which leads me to something that you've got to start accepting. It's that all this chaos and uncertainty in the job market nowadays basically makes all the old money advice outdated and doesn't work anymore. Nowadays, you need a completely different approach to money. So click here to learn how you can completely transform your finances in the next 6.5 months that you need to start doing today.